passed in Ukraine. It's Friday morning, and here are the latest operational news from TSN. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep up with all the most important updates. A massive Russian strike on Ukraine. The enemy attacked Kyiv, Dnipro, Zaporizhzhia, Kryvyi Rih, Kremenchuk, and other cities in the north, east, and center of the country. They targeted energy infrastructure. The left bank of Kyiv was left without electricity. As a result of the massive enemy attack on the capital, 12 people were injured, 8 of whom are currently in the hospital. Debris damaged apartment buildings. A fire broke out in a residential building in Pechersk. In the Holosivsky district, windows were blown out in an apartment building, and cars parked in the yard caught fire. In the Desnyansky district, debris fell near a clinic. Due to power outages in the capital, there were problems with the water supply. The metro stopped running on the left bank. Near Kyiv, in Brovary, debris from an enemy drone fell on a store. The fire was extinguished, but the two-story building was seriously damaged. A 7-year-old boy was killed last night by the Russians in Zaporizhzhia. The child was wounded as a result of Russian shelling. Doctors fought for the child's life but were unable to save him. The boy died in the hospital. Another person was injured. The massive attack on Zaporizhzhia lasted more than 6 hours. 1 person was killed and 5 more were wounded. Artillery shelling and drone terror in Kherson do not stop. The Russians struck a water utility vehicle. The driver was killed and 3 of his colleagues were taken to the hospital. All of them are in serious condition. 2 more city residents were hospitalized after a drone attack. The men were also in the vehicle at the moment of the enemy attack. It was loud in Dnipro in the evening. An explosion occurred in one of the city's districts. The Nikopol district endured several dozen attacks. The enemy struck it with artillery and drones. In the Marhanets community, a 68-year-old man was injured. As a result of Russian shelling, fires broke out, and private houses, equipment, and power lines were damaged. They did not reinforce it because they were waiting for the results of the examination. Representatives of the Kyiv City State Administration met with residents of the capital's high-rise building, where the collapse occurred yesterday, on the evening before. The building that collapsed is the one hit by a Shahed drone at the beginning of July. During the warm season, the damaged structure was not reinforced, even though people repeatedly appealed to various authorities demanding that supports be installed. And then at night, the building began to collapse again. To the residents' question, why haven't any reinforcement or restoration works been carried out for 3 months? The district head replied that there were no legal grounds to start repairs since expert assessments were still ongoing and project documentation was being prepared. At present, residents have been informed that some of the apartments deemed unfit for living will be demolished and rebuilt, and the people will be temporarily relocated. They were promised reimbursement for rental housing costs. The apartments that were only partially damaged will be restored. As for the heating, it is promised to be repaired in the near future. However, gas can only be reconnected after the building's roof has been restored. The roof repairs began today, and this work will last at least a month. Ursula von der Leyen has remained in office. The European Parliament rejected the vote of no confidence against the President of the European Commission. Proposals for von der Leyen's resignation were put forward by 2 parties with opposing views. The political group, the left, and the far-right group, Patriots for Europe, founded by the controversial Hungarian Prime Minister Orbán. Both proposals were rejected by the deputies. This means that the current composition of the European Commission, led by the pro-Ukrainian Ursula von der Leyen, remains in office. This is already the 2nd attempt this year to declare a vote of no confidence in her. The previous attempt failed in July. The accusations have been taken seriously and an investigation will be conducted. The European Commission has promised to examine all the details in light of press reports about Hungarian spies. For years, Budapest has been conducting intelligence activities in Brussels and has tried to recruit employees of European institutions. This is reported in a joint investigation by several international media outlets from Hungary, Germany, and Belgium. According to journalists, between 2015 and 2017, one of the Hungarian agents operated under diplomatic cover while attempting to recruit a representative of the European Commission. He offered him money for information, but the latter refused. The media also identified the names of 2 other suspected Hungarian spies who attracted attention during that period as well. It was previously revealed that Hungarian agents also monitored EU investigators who were probing corruption linked to Orbán's son-in-law. The first phase of the peace plan has been signed. The US president has announced encouraging news regarding Israel and Hamas. Donald Trump wrote on his social network that, as a result of negotiations in Egypt, the parties have agreed to begin implementing the first stage of the peace plan for resolving the situation in the Gaza Strip. According to the US president, this means the release of all hostages held by Hamas. The White House stated that this could happen on Monday. In return, Israel will withdraw its troops to a pre-agreed line. The mediators in these negotiations, namely the US, Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey, say that Israel and Hamas have agreed to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza. 400 trucks will be allowed through each day. The UN is already planning to increase the volume of aid. Deferral from military service, even for those who are wanted by the authorities. But there is a nuance. The parliament has allowed defense industry enterprises to grant a 45-day deferral to people who have issues with their military registration, such as missing or improperly completed military documents, or if a citizen is not registered or even wanted by the authorities. Such employees are granted a legal grace period of 45 days to resolve all discrepancies in their paperwork. Once the registration issues are resolved, the deferral will be extended or it will be cancelled if the shortcomings are not addressed. By providing this preliminary deferral, the state addresses several problems. In particular, more highly qualified workers will remain at enterprises, and men who previously had paperwork issues will come out of the shadows and work legally, explained Ukrainian Member of Parliament Halina Yanchenko.
We are essentially providing this 45-day window to undergo the Military Medical Commission, to register in the reserve, and then, with all the proper documents, to have the opportunity to get employed and receive deferral at defense factories.
You are watching the news from TSN. Don't forget to leave your comments. Your opinion is very important to us. And I continue with the broadcast. Getting divorced without leaving your couch. Starting next year, you will be able to file for divorce online through the Diya app. The Cabinet of Ministers has adopted the corresponding resolution. The service will be available around the clock and from anywhere in the world. However, this is only for those who do not have underage children. The certificate can be obtained electronically in a month. If someone changes their mind during this time, they have the option to withdraw the application. Accessible City. 15 cities in Ukraine took part in the Ministry for Communities Development's project Movement Without Barriers. With funding from the state and local budgets, streets and key institutions were adapted for people with disabilities. Each city independently determined which routes needed to be made more accessible. Ternopil is among the participants of the program. What has already been done and how those for whom all this was actually intended evaluated in the report by TSN correspondent Svitlana Pavuk.
The new barrier-free route runs from the hospital in a residential district to the city center. It was set up primarily for the military personnel who are being treated there and undergoing rehabilitation. We are inspecting the route together with some of them.
Many of my fellow soldiers with whom I was also hospitalized, who came from other cities, said that it was very well done, that not everywhere has something like this.
Meet serviceman Volodymyr Shumyak, 37 years old, a former teacher who has been at war since March 2022. He is currently wounded and undergoing rehabilitation.
An FPV drone flew up to about 1.5 to 2 meters away and exploded next to me. The blast wave threw me back and slammed me into a support log at our shelter, injuring my ball and socket joint. And from that, necrosis of the femoral head began, basically tissue death.
After treatment, I spent a month in a wheelchair and now I use crutches. The doctors advised me to gradually put weight on my leg. So Volodymyr takes walks from the hospital to the lake in the city center.
Here we have tactile paving, actually. So first of all, those who are visually impaired understand that this is a pedestrian zone. Anyone walking here, if they're blind, will know accordingly. And also you see the curbs are lowered, which allows us to move around, well, in wheelchairs.
Along the entire barrier-free route, there is tactile paving, lowered curbs, smooth paving stones, and a widened pedestrian area. For comparison, Volodymyr shows the opposite side of the road, where there is an ordinary narrow sidewalk with potholes. You can't get through there in a wheelchair, and it's easy to trip if you're using crutches.
There used to be huge potholes because nothing had been done here for years. But here they removed the old surface, laid new paving stones, and now you can both ride and walk on it.
The main purpose of this 4-kilometer barrier-free route is to allow people with disabilities to freely reach their desired destination, according to the City Council. That's why several public transport stops have also been renovated, and a free social taxi is operating.
At the moment, we have completed the first phase of work in our city. There are plans for every day of the coming year to make the entire city comfortable and barrier-free, to connect all the centers providing medical and social services so that they will be comfortable for every resident of our community.
Each of the 15 pilot cities in the project independently chose where exactly to lay the barrier-free routes and which institutions to connect with them. The funding for these innovations is shared, according to the relevant ministry.
When it comes to securing funding, we currently have, let's say, a comprehensive joint solution here, which primarily involves substantial partial financing from the national state budget. There is also funding provided by regional state administrations and directly by local self-government bodies.
By January, all 15 cities are expected to complete the work on creating accessible infrastructure, and next year, other communities are expected to join the project as well. Svitlana Pavuk, Alexander Romaniuk, Vitaly Pavuk, Ternopil, TSN 1+1.
The Nobel Prize for Compelling and Visionary Creativity, which affirms the power of art under conditions of terror, has been awarded, and the name of the literature laureate has been announced. It is being awarded to the Hungarian writer László Krasznahorkai. Meanwhile, Norway fears that Trump will respond with tariffs if he does not receive the Nobel Peace Prize, reports the British publication Financial Times. Donald Trump is putting pressure on both the Norwegian government and the Nobel Committee itself. In particular, he raised the issue of the award during a phone conversation with the Minister of Finance and former NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, and publicly calls himself a worthy candidate for the prize. Sources in Oslo suggest that the prize may be awarded to a neutral humanitarian organization to avoid conflict with Washington. A herd of deer was released into the wild in the Odesa region. 7 animals have found a home in the steppe. The relocation of animals to their former habitats is being carried out by specialists from a public environmental organization. If the deer population recovers, it will benefit both nature and local communities. The animals eat shrubs. Reducing thickets will lower the risk of fires, and in place of what is eaten, new plant species that prefer open spaces will grow. And after the war ends, it will be possible to develop ecotourism in the steppe.
The enemy has advanced on the front near the settlements of Vimka, Novoselivka, Poltavka, and Sishneve. These are the latest data from the analysts at the Deep State portal. At the same time, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reports that since the beginning of the day, about 1,500 clashes have been recorded on the front. A third of them took place in the most difficult Pokrovsk direction. Drone operators from the 4th Tactical Special Forces Group of the SSO have released a video showing Russian infantry entering the eastern part of the first mine of the Pokrovsk mine administration. But they were not allowed to gain a foothold, and the enemy assault troops were taken out by drones inside the building. To prevent the Russians from advancing specifically in the Pokrovsk sector, powerful measures are currently being employed. This was stated by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Alexander Syrsky. He says that above all, the defense forces there are trying to protect the roads and critical infrastructure. Also, according to Syrsky, the Dobropilia counter-offensive operation, which began back in August, is still ongoing. At this point, our army has managed to liberate more than 180 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory and clear almost 213 square kilometers of enemy sabotage.
Rains in Ukraine will persist at least until the end of the week, and no region will be able to escape the precipitation. At the same time, it will still be quite warm during the day, in some places up to 15 degrees Celsius. And it is in this kind of weather that mushrooms grow very well. But of course, don't forget, if there's a danger of finding something explosive in the forest, it's better to buy mushrooms at the market and stay safe. That's all for now. But Friday is just beginning. The TSN team will be keeping track of all the most important and relevant news. So don't miss our upcoming broadcasts. That's why we remind you to hit the bell and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Have a great Friday and end of the work week.